Everyone, RemanX here, and we always have this question whether or not there's a team that's skippable, and you guys know I hate that word. Marvel Strike Force over the past few years has made sure, as you can watch back with the interview that Valley and I did from the creative director, Jason Bender at the time, said that there was going to be no team that was skippable. And so the Scourge events have kind of doubled down on that. Pretty much every team and every character that's been released, with the exception of Magic, Maddie, and Cha-Cha, have been part of the Scourge unlock since then. So one of the things people want to do is avoid the trap. So we're going to go over this. We're going to talk about the past Scourges, what we learned from them. We're going to go over the Asgardian kit and what makes them outside of war. I took them apart and really dissected them as a team outside of their war bonuses, and we'll look at what's left over, because it's clear to me by the blog that there's another 2 teams that are going to be part of this unlock. So let's start with the basics here. Let's talk about something that I think is in everybody's mind. The post-mortem from the Scourge event is that realistically, Young Avengers blew the doors off of any expectations that we had for this. They are a dominant team, and they took a lot of people through higher Scourges than they did in the previous one with MILF, and allowed them to get a lot more completion points. Now, I don't think we're going to see another Scourge team that's easy to go as Young Avengers. And just to be very clear, when Young Avengers were announced, they were kind of lukewarm in the community. They kind of have been billed as this, Heroes for Hire 2.0, and they kind of let people down. But if you guys have been watching carefully, we knew they'd be very powerful in Crucible, and they were kind of built for modes that weren't out yet. This is even before Scourges were announced. So Young Avengers have really kind of solidified as the very top of the food chain for what a Scourge team can do. And that being said, let's talk about how to avoid traps. So realistically, A-Force was a letdown, and it was let down in every possible aspect of the game. Once they messed up the Spider-Woman kit, and they had to basically reduce her function so that it only worked in war with her passive, the offense down, providing that mischance, realistically put them in a position where I don't think they can recover. Without taking a powerful character like Doom as an assist character, they definitely fall short of, I think, of their intended uses, at least by the community. We don't feel confident that they fill our war offense requirement and being reliable, so that we can retain our position in our alliance, where our war captains don't go, "Hey, dude, what happened there? How'd you screw that tack up? We leveled up A-Force." Yeah, we all made that mistake. That being said, I was a unique situation where last Scourge, I screwed up the last node because I was dozing off at 2 o'clock in the morning fighting some sort of a flu-like symptoms, probably a tick bite. And I messed it up, but I had to level up my A-Force to the tune of some G16, some extra T4s, and was able to 4v4 the last node, but not without a lot of frustration, swear words, and broken chargers. I don't know if I can bill Scopely directly for that, but let me know. That being said, I did find that they were usable, probably in the same vein that we had from Dark Hunters. But Dark Hunters at the time, because of the fact that Heroes for Hire was such a headache, I think a lot more people built up Dark Hunters, and in the end, they were kind of the sack team, kind of the assist team, and Dark Hunters had a lot more survivability and sustain because of Dr. Voodoo than, unfortunately, A-Force had. So we've got to look at some of the abilities that these have and kind of go through that. So we're going to start with a quick prediction. We're going to talk about, realistically, who the other 2 Scourges could be based on some, wild scenarios here. And then we're going to talk about an in-depth evaluation on the Asgardians outside of war and see if they're going to be worth your investment. So stay tuned. So we're going to start with this. We talked about the 3 characters that have not been featured as a Scourge, have been Maddie, Cha-Cha, and Magic. Now, these 3 characters anchored additional teams that a lot of people thought were skippable. We're going to use the word shelvable from now on, because it makes my skin crawl when I say skippable, because I would hate for you guys to miss out on characters that become essential for the endgame unlock. Moving on, those characters felt like traps to certain folks here, even though I have them at relatively built up on my roster to make sure they accomplish what they need to do in the end game. Now, to be clear, that means that either Uncanny, Ravagers, and or Marauders could wind up being the third tag. So here's how we know, we think we know, that there's going to be 3 teams. Hero Asgardian and the Third Horseman. Uncovering Famine's identity has helped Strike decipher more of the machinations of Apocalypse. The Third Horseman has been confirmed as War. You lead the following to face the upcoming Horseman threat and their Scourge event. Difficulty 5, Hero Asgardian, and more details on the other 2 traits required to take on the Horsemen of War are currently being deciphered. Stay tuned. So it could be that they're going to use those to make sure that every character is featured in the FOMO since the release this year and the announcement of Apocalypse coming to the game. So be prepared for something like that. Now, do I say go crazy? Well, with Shot and Magic both being farmable in the game, and not just, fountainable through orbs, etc., they're actually available coming to nodes, will help out a lot more. Stay tuned. Obviously, there's a lot of people don't have the Ravagers built up, and building up minions doesn't feel great. Moving on. So I took a list of these character traits, and what I did was I kind of built my own PDF to kind of take away all the noise that's the war kits for this team. And I wanted to take a look and kind of decipher whether or not they had some RNG capabilities that make them kind of like Web Warriors were. And so that's one of the things we want to look at is the Web Warriors Dark Hunters Scourge was different than others because we had a lot of RNG from the Web Warriors. There's a lot of RNG just built in. It wasn't as bad with Young Avengers, with the exception of making sure certain characters got blinded from Kate Bishop's passive. So we're going to talk about all of this right now. So we're going to talk about the control elements, what they do in the basics, which again, that certain Scourges turn off either your specials and your ults. So starting with the basics here are going to give us the idea. So Mighty Thor clears 2 positive effects on a basic. Very, very good basic ability, right? She also has a speed bar reduction when she partners up with a stun, which is going to be important because there are multiple stuns in this team. And then the disrupt as well. And then you've got the stun or disrupt. You get to choose when you use that on the 5/5. You've got a positive effect to negative effect. This is going to be super helpful with teams that do that. Now remember, these long cooldowns mean that you're probably going to go in there, maybe sack with a team and go finish this off, sack with another team and have all these cooldowns up for the end. Kind of how I'm predicting this to work. And I was very close to the prediction last time how there was going to be a sack team on the last node for sure. Okay. Now, you'll see that a lot of this stuff is transferred over. Now, the only concern we have is their only real sustain is built into their passive. So what's going to happen is you're going to have to control out of the target. So we're looking for specific things that allow us to control. So her ult allows you to apply blind to the primary target. Again, she may have to be skirmisher to do this outside of war. We'll talk about it. Again, you can see this 25% health because of the full team is going to be the common ability that's going to tie them all together. Now we're taking a look at Valkyrie, right? Valkyrie basically has kind of this really powerful basic, okay? The one thing about her is, let's say you turn on that death proof Scourge, and one of the members in chat today was very, very aware of this. So her basic, okay, will transfer 1 death proof from the primary target to the most injured ally. So there's some built-in survivability right there. So if the target has death proof, you're going to be able to do that just from her basic, which is a pretty powerful ability. And a lot of the characters we've seen in recent editions have the ability to apply death proof either by themselves or on their teams. And then we're going to talk about this. She has a first turn stun, which means it's a longer cooldown, but a 5/5 stun. Which is also going to be very, very powerful because you're going to be able to choose when you're going to do your offense up and your defense up to really, and the 2 counters, again, will do devastating amounts of damage to teams you know, as they eat through those counters. All right, and then so she also has an ability block. It's available on her second turn, and I think you're looking at a team that has multiple ability blocks, multiple stuns. We're going to get into more. Passive heal. I think there's a lot more lying below the surface here that says that this team is not going to be skippable. All right, and so obviously when this character dies, which I think is important because this is going to be the randomness of the last node. I expect the last node to be extremely difficult, and it's going to be one of those where you're going to be losing characters. Like, oh, I just lost Sif, powered up for the next couple nodes. Oh, I just lost this person. I got to go back in there. I want to lose Sif so I get the safeguard for this flip. I really feel like that's going to be part of the mechanic you're looking for, because that's the RNG built in that we saw in previous nodes. So it's already kind of shining a light as to how they're going to build this, right? So killing off a character, getting the extra bonuses, all that power up is going to be a big deal, right? And again, it's only a 50% chance to happen outside of war. And ladies and gentlemen, there is your RNG effect. So especially in the last node, this team is going to be the finisher, in my opinion. Okay? Heimdall. Now here's the big difference from Heimdall, okay? So his basic is going to be a very powerful basic. I will probably make him striker for this, and you can have a skirmisher on multiple targets to get the triple tap capability, especially if you're punching up in levels. If you go to level 9 or level 10, because of the enemy level, you may need the extra focus. We saw that with like Kate Bishop in the most recent Scourge. So you could see this right here happening. And more importantly, this attack here, now I've got to double check it, but I believe it works like Hela, where his flip stealth is going to eat evades on enemy targets. So if you're fighting a team like Young Avengers, I believe, and I'll be able to double check that later on today, so stay tuned, I'll put it in the comments here. I believe it works like Sif, where it does do the enemy attack and does eat evades. So it does attack all enemies for 330% damage. I believe that because I think it, like when we were fighting them against X-Force, they were still hitting him. I was like, why is that happening? And it was because of the fact that he has that ability to clear evades. And then he also now clears heal block from self and all Asgardian allies, and then clear additional 2 negative effects from self and all allies, which is huge. So built-in sustain, built-in removal at 2-4 is not too bad. But again, that's the big difference. Is I think when they're powered up in later matches, they're going to have that with their offense up. And then you heal block with some of the characters that we saw, especially things like the Asgardians, etc. I was fighting a mighty Thor in the last node, and by the way, if I didn't have heal block on her, I wouldn't have been able to kill her. She was just able to heal through so much damage, which is kind of what I'm saying. Is we're kind of getting these characters that, because of the event, at a relatively generous level. The campaign event and the Thor event have allowed us to get higher stars than we have on previous characters. So I think this might be better to invest in the long term, but I'm not suggesting do it yourself yet. And then you can see on heal block, apply a fill speed bar by 20%. So if teams are out there that either have Heimdall or other characters that apply AoE heal blocks, he's going to get sped up to the point where he's going to flip that early enough that it's not going to affect the enemy turn, the allies from taking their turn without their heals, which is important to notice, right? So you're going to be saving this for when they get heal block and he speeds up to get faster than his allies. And then, all that bonus crit chance, the 50% bonus, is outside of war. And then take a look at Sif. Sif actually is a really good tank with a 3/3 taunt, pretty decent damage, and more importantly, the base block chance with her whole team. She's a pretty good tank, and she deals out decent damage, which is all you need to know about her. And ultimately, I think on the last node, you're going to want her to die so you can finish off the team. And that's going to be kind of the RNG you're looking for, right? So, and then we're going to talk about Thor. Now, Thor here didn't get a crazy rework, but I think when we're looking at this as a whole, he's going to take lots of turns. And honestly, you're going to be looking at his Lightning Storm, probably building it up and trying to stun as many targets as possible to be able to control the damage and go in there and control with ability block stuns. It's already shaping up to be a very RNG-dependent team that I think is indicating that this will probably be the primary Scourge team. Now, it's predicated on kind of thinking that the other teams are already in the game and they're using the character slots. So if it is Uncanny X-Men, well, sorry, Phoenix, you don't have any sustain. You're a one and done. Magic is great because of the fact that she empowers her X-Men allies with terrain, But beyond that, they're not going to be an exceptional team as far as finishing nodes off. And if it is Ravagers, Ravagers have some sustain, but at the same point in time, that burst damage, I think you're going to find that they just don't have the ability to hold with as much control as you get out of this team. Because this team has a significant amount of control, that's the big difference. And then if it happens to be Marauders, they do have a degree of sustain, but without Emma, they kind of lose a bit of their umph. So you're going to watch poor Strife taunt and then get worked over, like he's been hiding secrets from the mob pretty easily. So I think you're going to see that this is something that you can see this from what's left over. This team is definitely rising to the top, in my opinion. Now, at the end of the day, the speed up with the enemy attack, with the fact that there's between 6 and 10 targets on the node at any given time, this team is going to be a lot faster than we think. And so I want you to understand that I would be hesitant to ignore the fact that we're also being given gear for this team too. So stay tuned. I'm sure there's going to be more announcements coming soon. But like I said, hopefully this will identify itself in the next couple of days. But again, this team feels to me like they're exceptional outside of war. We've already seen them on Crucible defense. I know some people are using them on Crucible offense. We've used them on war defense. We're gonna do some war offense testing down the road with them, and really kind of take a look at this team and really break them down, because before you make this investment, I want to make sure you understand all of the key points of this, and hopefully you guys can make the best decisions for your roster. Anyway, I do things so you don't have to, and this was a lot of copy paste and really trying to figure out how these basics worked, and kind of taking a look at what we have, what we don't have, and what we need, and hopefully give you guys some insight from the end game. Love you much.